morning and welcome back to World Talks. I'm Sally Jastrzębska. A memorandum of understanding between Finland and Estonia has been signed in response to last year's damage of the Balticconnector, a natural gas pipeline linking Finland with Estonia. But there have been some more alarming situations on the Baltic Sea, which propelled both countries to take action. To discuss what the existing and future threats to the Baltic Sea underwater infrastructure are and ways to protect it, I am joined here this morning by Igor Protasowicki, cybersecurity expert, WSB Merito University Warsaw. Good morning, sir. Delighted to have you with us. Before we embark on our discussion, let's take a quick look at a video that we prepared on the subject.
A memorandum of understanding between Finland and Estonia has been signed in response to last year's damage of the Balticconnector, a natural gas pipeline and communications cable linking Finland with Estonia. But there have been some more alarming situations on the Baltic Sea, which propelled both countries to take action.
Let's not forget the Nord Stream incident either. And also there might be some accidents, there might be some other reasons why critical infrastructure is damaged.
2 years ago, the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline connecting Russia with Germany sent shockwaves across the world after it was rendered inoperable. Then, last year, the Balticconnector, a 77-kilometer conduit between Estonia and Finland, was impaired after a Chinese vessel ruptured it with an anchor, purportedly by accident. But the damage to the pipeline coincided with the destruction of the submarine communications cable between Estonia and Sweden. Both incidents raised questions over maritime surveillance of underwater energy connections.
Of course, the enemies don't sleep, and it also shows that this is an important part of the Central and Eastern Europe infrastructure. So the sea will be now more and more attacked.
Though the memorandum of understanding does not seem to have a profound impact immediately, it is expected to translate into measurable effects in the long run.
How we protect the infrastructure, how we monitor the critical energy infrastructure, and how we could possibly, for example, cooperate still more closely in repair of these connections.
The future of the bi-directional natural gas pipeline Balticconnector is particularly salient for Finland, as it is the first and so far the only gas interconnector that links the Nordic country to the European grid.
So, certainly a much needed initiative, but let me ask you about the infrastructure that we have going under the Baltic Sea in general. Why is it so vulnerable to all sorts of threats, and shouldn't it be better protected in a sense?
Well, we are talking about not the biggest pond in the world, but still it's the general area of 377,000 kilometers, if I remember it correctly. And all this infrastructure is not the same type as we built on the ground, because all the cables and pipelines are just laid down on the bottom of the sea. They are being built like live by connecting another and another segments and just put down from the vessel. So they fall down on the bottom of the sea freely, and prior to the positioning of this pipeline or cable, the ground is being checked. It's impossible to check the ground precisely because of the depth of some areas, but still, the bottom of the sea is being checked for obstacles and so on. So the best route is being chosen. And then when the cable lays down, or the pipeline lays down on the bottom of the sea, the entire area is being marked. So everybody knows where the cable or pipeline is, and everybody should know that it's forbidden to provide specific sort of activities around it. Mm-hmm. So to protect it, it's not an infinite amount of such connections that we have to protect, but still we're talking about quite large area to cover, and it's impossible to involve sufficient amount of forces, for example, to keep an eye on it 24 hours, 7 days a week.
Right, so let's go back to the issue of Balticconnector, right? Because we had this leak last year caused by a Chinese vessel. I mean, the anchor of a Chinese vessel, Nunu Polar Bear, and then there was an investigation. So was it a sabotage or was it not?
Probably something happened not without the consciousness. So when the area is marked and everybody knows, it's on a map, everybody knows it's forbidden to anchor in that area. The positions to anchor a ship on the Baltic Sea are also marked precisely, because when the vessel is waiting for entrance to the harbor, it's allowed to anchor in very precise spot. So if the vessel is dropping an anchor to the bottom of the sea in the place where some kind of infrastructure is, it's a suspicious activity.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, just, the way I see it is that if everyone knows that a certain pipeline is in a given location, right, doesn't it make it easier? Doesn't it make it easier to attack this particular, piece of infrastructure, be it a pipeline or some other connecting?
Yes, unfortunately it is. It's the same thing with all the infrastructure we have on the ground, because when we have the land line of the pipeline or the cables, some of the most critical infrastructure in telecommunication, its current position is very well known, it's very well described, because it's on the projects, it's on the maps. And the same thing applies to the infrastructure in the sea. Well, now the thing that is quite harder to provide on the sea is you have to reach with specific depth in order to do any harm. Plus, you have to take hazardous conditions under consideration, because the seawater damages things in the sea. Like constantly.
Right, but if we take a look at the Nord Stream 2, right? I mean, it was accessible. I mean, the pipeline was, it was possible for the scuba divers to access it, right? So it was not too deep, so to speak. So shouldn't that depth? I mean, shouldn't that be a factor?
It's always a factor, but the Baltic Sea is quite specific. It has the deepest areas which would be impossible to access by scuba divers, but when you position a pipeline like the Nord Stream, it was next to the coastline, like the straight line and the shortest line possible. So in the shallowest areas, it was even making the larger vessels impossible to enter Polish harbors.
So how deep was it?
It was deep enough to keep it safe in specific areas, but as well not deep enough to make it impossible to access with using just ordinary measures like scuba diving equipment.
Right, because of course, I mean, you probably don't even have to be a technical diver, right? Because if
No.
it's like, 40 meters deep or something, someone with an open water can
Yes,
probably
exactly.
access that. So that's I would say, even quite funny, because it's a critical piece of infrastructure, right? And it's so easily accessible. And then, you also have precise coordinates where it is. So I guess it's making it a very, very, very easy target.
Yes, exactly. And on the other hand, it makes it harder to deepen all the pathways to harbors. When only you put anything on the ground, on a sea level, providing any services, like doing any constructions underneath it, over it, is impossible due to international regulations. Lines should not cross.
Okay, so we did some complaining, or at least I did, about the security. So what can be done to fix it? What can be done to make these kinds of infrastructure more secure?
Basically, we have to involve international measures in order to provide the proper levels of monitoring the infrastructure. I'm not talking about the precise 24/7 monitoring, but at least regular reviews of the infrastructure, plus providing international military forces or peacekeeping forces involved in patrolling the area.
So we have this new form of cooperation between Finland and Estonia. Do you feel that we'll see more such initiatives, also involving other countries, possibly Poland and other countries that are interested in keeping the Baltic secure?
Yes, it is quite possible. Well, the cooperation between Estonia and Finland, or basically Estonia and all the Nordic countries, is simpler because of the distance. It's more or less 70 kilometers. If we're talking about crossing the Finnish Bay, the entire trip on a ship would take approximately 1 or 2 hours. But if we would like to apply the same resources to the cooperation between, let's say, Estonia and Germany, the distance is significantly longer, so that in order to apply specific security measures to secure, well, let's say just at least those parts of the infrastructure that would be exposed to such activity like Nord Stream was, it would be possible, but on the other hand, we have to take the costs under consideration. We already have the patrolling units all over the Baltic Sea on a daily basis, but as I said, it's not 24/7. It's like once or twice a day on specific areas in order to make sure that no foreign forces or no foe forces are entering our airspace or invade our seas. It's also impossible, on the other hand, because of Baltic Sea as being like closed pond. And in order to provide 100% security, it would involve measures that would be impossible to keep.
Okay, but looking back at cases such as Nord Stream 2, I mean, who is to blame for this incident, right? Apart from people who actually are behind what has happened, but I'm thinking about authorities who are supposed to protect the pipeline, and sort of what about international cooperation in this regard between different police forces, or how is this supposed to work?
Well, yes, we're talking about the level of cooperation that would be impossible to apply because of the size of the threat. Nord Stream was damaged by small group equipped with amateur equipment, getting to the area using just an ordinary civilian equipment. So on one hand, it's almost impossible to find it on the radars. On the other hand, this sort of ships are fast enough to escape most of the Coast Guard equipment that we have, or we have internationally, we, Germany and other Baltic states. And if we talk about it in terms of terrorism, one of the most important things in terrorism is the impossibility to foresee the further actions. Definitely
a black swan kind of a situation, right?
Exactly.
Thank you, sir, so much for being with us this morning. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And thank you for watching. Igor Protasowicki was my guest this morning. Please stay tuned for more here on TVP World. News service coming up right at the top of the hour.